Welcome to Taipei Scooter Style Video 18, Scooter Shot. In this video, I'm going to be discussing a recent news story involving scooters here in Taipei and a subject near and dear to my heart, foreign residents of Taiwan. So first of all, let me show you a video that I saw on the internet a couple of weeks ago.
警棍打歪，勇警开枪制服酒驾胖老外。前方拒绝酒测的美籍机车骑士，一路高速骑车想逃跑，警员一路追到6张里公墓，双方还展开肉搏战。一阵扭打后，警员连警棍都打歪了，掏枪射击老外腿部，才制服这个酒驾超过100公斤的胖老外。
他用手肘攻击我，或是有穿防弹衣，所以还要免受伤。
这名勇警就是有酒驾杀手之称的南昌派出所警员吴文德。勇警和另一名警员前天凌晨在北市罗斯福路巡逻时，看到美籍男子马哲翰在人行道违规骑车，上前盘查，闻到他一身酒气，要老外停车，却被加速逃逸。老外骑车在小巷内不时急刹回转穿梭，勇警一路追到10公里外山区，行经公墓时还默念请好兄弟帮忙抓人。
Okay, so that's the video that I eventually saw on the internet, but I didn't actually find out about that myself. I don't watch much TV. I was on a bulletin board that is used commonly here in Taiwan. I mean an online bulletin board, and I won't give you the name. And people were discussing this story, and it was already, I think a week after it happened before I noticed this story. What I'll do now is I'll just sort of share with you what the Apple Daily used in their news report just now. What they were showing you was a foreign guy who had been shot in the ass, and the bullet had gone down into his lower leg, I guess, from the initial shot. And this took place after he tried to evade that policeman that you saw there, the guy with the crew cut and the ripped pocket. That apparently the foreigner, after leaving a pub on Roosevelt Road, was stopped on the suspicion that he was drunk and driving a scooter, and that he did not comply with the officer's wishes, and he took off. And he took off down this road that we're now driving on, which is Hoping East Road in the Da'an district. He eventually went up into the cemetery. That was the sort of night shots that you saw, filmed pretty badly from the policeman's scooter cam. And at some point, the policeman rammed the scooter, knocked the foreign rider off of it, tried to subdue him, used the baton that you saw in the video clip, the one that was bent. I think he bent it on his head or on his body, or maybe trying to choke him. I'm not sure exactly about that. I won't spread too many further rumors. And then at one point, the policeman shot him. There's some various other details in this story, talking about how he appealed perhaps to the ghosts in the cemetery to help him subdue this foreigner. Another feature of the news story was that they kept referring to him as the fat foreigner, or the 100-kilogram fat foreigner. And I'll come back and talk about that detail in a moment, but those are pretty much what you heard on the video there. Saw some pictures of him in the ambulance, saw the policeman who shot him talking about the event. And then at one point you saw the policeman back up on the road in the cemetery during the daytime talking to some journalists. And we'll come back to those points. So first of all, that's basically the story that I heard. On the online bulletin board where I heard about it, they were not saying the name of this person because there is a policy not to out foreigners, only using their online identities. And in fact, people weren't even referring to this person by his online identity. I've since learned who he was, his real name and his online identity. It's not a person that I know. However, I do know people who know him, and they have various things to say about him. Won't share those. Because really, this story is interesting to me just on the fact that it touches so many different issues. Scooter's just one part of that, but it certainly is a scooter issue. That's kind of why I feel like I feel comfortable talking about it. Plus, this road that it took place on, the one that I'm driving on right now, was one that I drive on pretty frequently. I work just another 300 or 400 meters up this road on the left. I travel this road quite often when I'm in Taipei. You can see the MRT right above there. I ride that as well. So I thought that this would be a story to share with the fans of Taipei scooter style. What I'm going to be doing right now is talking about some of the issues that I've learned about from looking at the online bullet board, and also from talking with some of my friends, some of those who knew this person and some who did not. But everybody, it seems, has opinions. I'm kind of a student of the human condition, so I'm interested in what people find worth talking about with this story. So that's what I'm going to do right now is identify for you some of these points and add some of my own comments on it as well. So first of all, drunk driving, really seems to be at the heart of this story. Most of the people that I've seen commenting on this story say he's a bad guy for drinking and driving. That everybody knows drinking and driving is bad, it's against the law, it's dangerous. And, I can't really dispute that. I mean, I think everybody understands that, being intoxicated while you're driving is a danger to other road users and to yourself, and it is against the law. So not many people are going to argue that drunk driving is good. But some people would argue that, he made a simple mistake, a mistake that many people have made in their lives. And in that regard, he's not very different from the rest of us. And again, that's an opinion that it's hard to dispute. The fact that drunk driving has been a crime, for my whole life, but that the laws have been strengthened, the penalties have been strengthened. Moving from one country to another, you do see the differences in drunk driving laws and how they're enforced. In Taiwan, we have a lot of roadblocks at night. And as you're driving through the city or the countryside, you'll be stopped and the policeman will come up to you and ask you to lift the visor on your helmet, and he will smell your breath. And if he thinks that you've been drinking, then he will ask the driver to pull over. They don't do the roadside sobriety test here. I guess checking, touching your nose and walking a line, holding you with your eyes closed, the things that you see on movies. What they do is they just get their breathalyzer. They ask you to blow into it. And Taiwan does now have very strict drunk driving laws. I don't have the data in front of me right now, but Taiwan is in fact one of the countries that has the strictest drunk driving laws, and I'm talking here in regard to how much alcohol can be in your blood or in your breath before you are found guilty. And generally the way they talk about it here in Taiwan is now if you have one beer, you are over the limit. So it's pretty much a zero tolerance kind of issue. And there are other countries that have similarly tough laws in this regard. So Taiwan's not alone, but it is kind of in the first tier of countries, in terms of drunk driving, blood alcohol levels. And if you are drunk driving in Taiwan, you will go to jail. Not, for years, but for a period of time. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. I think I've actually posted that on an earlier Taipei Scooter Style blog post about some of these ideas. But that's the first thing from this story, is just this whole discussion of drunk driving. And, when we talk about foreigners in Taiwan, the whole drunk driving issue becomes important as well. In Taiwan, when foreigners do bad things, whether they're illegal or whether they're just perverse or obscene, whatever it is, a lot of foreigners feel that it makes us all look bad. I guess there's a belief that local people think all foreigners know each other, that we're all degenerates, disrespectful for their customs, their authority, and I guess just generally ungrateful for all that Taiwan has done for them, us, the foreigners. Not everybody takes that view towards it, but there are certainly a lot of people who feel whatever any foreigner does has an impact on how the Taiwanese people see the rest of us and treat the rest of us. Personally, my take on that is I don't feel that. I'm a middle-aged man with a job, a life, a family. I don't feel that, a 25-year-old who goes to pubs and is using drugs or drinking really in any way influences the way people treat me. I may just not be aware of it. Maybe it's there. But in my daily life, I don't really feel like that's an issue. I may be blind to that, I suppose. But as far as this being a foreign issue, there's a fact that there is a foreign community in Taiwan. Everybody who's not Taiwanese and lives in this city, has an awareness that there's a bit of an us and them kind of issue. And of course, the foreign community sort of separates by languages or nationalities and other things. There are a lot of English speakers here. There are a lot of foreign English teachers here. And so when something happens among the foreign English teaching community, there's discussion and consideration as to whether it makes the rest of us look bad or whether it has anything to do with us. And, this particular story, I don't know this person who drove up this road that night, allegedly drunk, and got in a fight with a policeman and got shot. But I know people who know him. There have been other cases in Taiwan with, foreigners who have committed criminal acts. I have known them, and I guess I was a little relieved when this story happened to find out that it wasn't somebody that I knew. I mean, I'd like to think that my friends are smart enough not to be drunk driving, not to be running from the police if they were drunk driving, not to fight with the police and get shot, in this cemetery that I know really well. It's right near my office. We just went past my office about 3 minutes ago. I've been up this road many times. This whole issue in terms of foreigners in Taiwan, that's certainly a factor when I heard this story. An interesting thing about this story is, again, that many people that I know knew this guy. And I found out about it on an online, bulletin board where he was an active poster. I'm not an active poster. I'm what's called a lurker. I read the posts, gather information from it, but don't actually participate in sharing my opinions on that. I'm on Facebook, and I do have some online, identity, but this particular bulletin board that we're talking about, I'm not engaged in. So on that bulletin board, people were, sharing opinions, some of those that I'm introducing to you now, but they were also organizing a Facebook page to support him. Oh, and by the way, look at this, I missed the turn. It's kind of amazing how drunk that guy was. He was able to drive up this road and get a lot farther than I have with the cop chasing him. I wasn't paying too close of attention and actually took the wrong road here. But I can rectify that, take a quick left back onto the main road. But you see, they are pretty narrow. Okay, so his friends created a Facebook page for him, and a lot of people took offense at that. They felt that somehow, they were supporting his actions and, maybe saying that again, this idea that there's a collective identity among foreigners and that what one person does wrong makes the rest of us look bad. So this idea that they were then supporting him would make the Taiwanese think that foreigners stand with each other, and that even though we, the foreign community, might have individual members who do criminal acts or do things that are obscene or disrespectful or perverse or whatever it is, that them showing public support could also then be interpreted negatively toward the foreign community. So the feeling was that they should not have been supporting him. And as I said, there was some attempt to kind of conceal this person's identity at least on the bulletin board, not talking about his online identity, not mentioning his real name. And as I said, when I was looking at this, I didn't know who this person was. I didn't actually find that out until I started talking to individuals that I knew. All right, another topic on this point is the police. Some people, especially those who felt that, the drunk driving crime that he committed and, running from the cops, felt that maybe he deserved to be shot, disrespecting the police. He had it coming. Other people think that the cop overreacted, and they might even connect this with the fact that he was a foreigner. They or others may think that the cop shouldn't have shot him. They should have traced his license plate and picked him up the next morning at home. Or tasered him, or various other sort of non-lethal punishments. Other people thought that he was lucky that it happened in Taiwan, that if it had happened in a different country, like America, the U.S., where he is from, where I'm from, that he would be dead because the cops would have shot him. These are hypotheticals, but it shows that, some people really had issues with the whole shooting. Some thought it was right, some thought it was above and beyond. The media is a whole nother angle on this story. Your Mandarin may not be as good as others. Mine's not great, but I could follow that story. They were calling him the fat foreigner. But the fact is, that was maybe the only media story that I saw on this issue. And again, I don't watch a lot of TV, but it wasn't in the English paper at all. Never came up. So the media wasn't giving this story a lot of play. And the media outlet that you saw in that video, Apple Daily, and that was their video site, they're actually well known for sensationalizing news stories. So in that regard, not a lot of people pay attention to their stories as, always given the unvarnished news. Another issue is that the media has felt, and this is by foreigners, they think the media targets foreigners, an us and them kind of issue. But, the types of stories they're talking about is when there's crimes and there's drinking or there's sex involved. Those kind of stories get a lot of play. And there was just one just recently about a Turkish guy who was filming his conquest girls that he'd met, pubs or whatever. And, those things play in the media. It doesn't really matter what nationality someone is, I guess. But that's a part of it. And people feel that because he was a foreigner, it got some encouragement. But, for me, the attraction to the story was, it was about scooters. But the question is, do scooters encourage lawless driving? It's real easy to drive around on a scooter, on the sidewalk, across the lawn, whatever. But it's a scooter story. And I just want to say, I don't think scooters are the great vehicles to outrun the cops. Underpowered, hard to steer. Look at this road. It's really narrow. There's gravel on it, these blind corners. I'm not urging anybody to run from the cops. Quite the opposite. I think that we should pull over when the cops ask us to do that. But this cemetery, the cemetery that we're in, you can see the roads are narrow and twisty. It's a great place to ride in the daylight. The views down into the city, you can see right here, they're great. But not when the cops are chasing you. This is a long road. There's nowhere to get off it, really, unless you ditch your scooter and run into the cemetery. Now, if you want to come up to this cemetery, I say do it in the daytime when you're sober. If you've been drinking, get a taxi. Take a taxi, have him drive you up here, look down at the view. It's a great place to chill out. You could probably, bring some friends up and have a little party sort of sitting here looking down into the city. So in the end, I don't have a lesson to offer about this incident. Really just sharing the experience. This is part of being a member of Taipei's scooter riding community. You know, and in that regard, this is a story that I have a connection to. The fact that this is a cemetery I know really well, that it was a foreign resident, you know, these are issues as well. But mainly, this is a scooter story. So in the end, I want to thank you for watching Taipei Scooter Style Video 18 Scooter Shot. And as I used to hear on a local English language radio, 喝酒不开车，开车不喝酒。